From birth, our brains are constantly changing, forming new connections, pruning old ones, and making new brain cells to help us grow and understand our world. This ability is known as neuroplasticity, and it's the reason we can learn and relearn from experiences as we grow. But not all brain changes are positive.
Depression is a complex mental health condition with profound effects on the brain. It changes the brain structure and function. Basically, it changes the parts of the brain and how they all work together.
Research shows that depression can alter the size of certain brain regions. The hippocampus, for example, which is critical for memory and emotional regulation, can actually shrink in people who struggle with depression.
This isn't just numbers or trivia. It's the change that affects how we process emotions and recall memories. It's why telling people who are depressed to just think positively isn't really helpful, because the brain as an organ has rearranged itself to encode more negative experiences more strongly than the positive ones.
The hippocampus is a key part of the prefrontal limbic network. This is a series of brain regions that form a bridge between the brain's hub for logic, control, and reason and its emotional center. Millions of cellular connections along this corridor are responsible for maintaining the brain's standard operations.
Depression disrupts this intricate network. It throws off the balance of chemicals that brain cells use to communicate, causing these connections to basically weaken. As the brain struggles to keep up with running, some areas can shrink or maybe even stop working as well as they should. That is exactly why people with depression often feel disconnected or are unable to think and feel clearly.
And that's just the start. It's not just brain regions and connections that change, but also how they communicate with each other. In a typical brain, chemicals called neurotransmitters are constantly fired off in incredibly complex sequences to carry messages between cells. Depression affects these cellular messengers. It disrupts neurotransmitters, especially serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine, which can influence mood, sleep, and appetite.
You've probably heard that depression is caused by not enough serotonin. It's a simplistic myth. The reality is far more complex imbalance between neurotransmitter systems that is unique to each person.
This complexity explains why no two people will have the same experience of depression. Some people experience depression as sadness, and others feel more numb or hopeless. Some people with depression experience sleep changes, and others experience appetite changes. Some experience both. Some people might not seem obviously depressed because they can still handle daily tasks and responsibilities, while others can barely make it out of bed.
But it's impossible to determine or measure the exact imbalance or rewiring behind depression. The brain changes are so individualized.
But what every person with depression does have in common are brains with a unique chemical imbalance and wiring that make it difficult to feel pleasure or joy, difficult to make decisions, concentrate or remember, and difficult to connect with other people.
It is important that we recognize how depression changes the brain not just for scientific knowledge, but for empathy and support. People with depression want to feel better. They want to remember the good times as much or more than the bad ones at least. They want to be able to pay attention and remember as well as anyone else can. But often their brains aren't letting them.
But there is good news. The same neuroplasticity that enables depression to change the brain also allows the brain to be changed back.
One of the key purposes of therapy is to learn and apply the techniques and use those techniques consistently to undo some of the brain changes that depression has made. Research actually shows that therapy can rewire the brain, and in doing so, people will feel better eventually.